But I was going to actually tie it back into Parasite in saying that there's not really a middle class in Parasite, or as I thought about it, it was more of that because essentially the Kim family needs to portray itself as middle class.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
like
that's right. Yeah.
They're lower class, but they need to present as if they are more
They're
educated,
just like skilled workers,
yeah,
and
as more educated as they
and
are,
just,
have better clothes than they would normally wear,
Yeah.
and things like that. It seems interesting that there is essentially no middle class. It's just the lower class pretending to be middle class, and I feel like this is like a very common experience now of where there is essentially like a rapidly disappearing middle class. Nobody wants to acknowledge it because everyone still wants to think of themselves as middle class.
Yeah, everyone's middle class.
But
if you
really,
ask them.
it has just become only like upper and lower class now.
That's very true. Yeah, I'm like, it's interesting to think about because it's kind of like, you know, you were talking about performativity earlier, and like it's almost both the Park family and the Kim family trying to both collectively hallucinate this middle ground that they're equal on, that they're able to interact through, right? But like it doesn't exist for either of them, you know. So in some sense, there is like an even playing field or something that they're both able to engage with and that they're kind of interacting on. I'm tempted to say that the house plays that role. The house is both a spectacle for the ages, right? Because it's like designed by this like architect, and it's beautiful and has these like open hallways and this like beautiful view of the yard. Everything's landscaped perfectly. And so it's kind of like a spectacle for the ages, as well as simultaneously being like an immense, like disgusting decadence for like, you know what I'm saying? For like some family that like commissioned it, right? Like if it was just a piece of art, like if it was a museum or something, then no one would think of the house as like decadent. It would just be like, this is the beauty for the ages, it's for posterity, like it's to represent, you know, the achievements of the age or art or something. But like you wouldn't think of it as disgusting. But when it's like you think about like someone lives here and they like own this, that's like, holy shit, that's this is like decadent as fuck.
Have you ever seen pictures of the artistic period that was called Rococo? That was for the French aristocracy.
I just watched the Antiques Roadshow the other night randomly. I don't normally
did not see that coming.
I don't normally watch Antiques Roadshow, but like I watched one
Thanks
the other
for
night.
clarifying that.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't really give a fuck about that kind of shit. But like somebody brought in like a random chair, but it was really beautiful looking. They were talking about how it came from the Rococo period and that all of its adornments and stuff were only from the perspective of someone who would be looking at it. And on the other sides of it, like, you know, it was all like rough, and it was obvious that it was like hand milled, and like everything about it was like, it was handcrafted, but it was like handcrafted by like a poor person who's trying to make some money off of something they built. You know, so yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, but the way that sort of like decadence plays into how we find some sort of common ground, I think this is actually really important. Because the idea that the house is this sort of artistic, architectural sort of production, this like, you know, aesthetic artifact, is the middle ground. It's sort of like the vanishing mediator of the classes. And there's this really important way, I think, that it's almost as if whenever the material conditions are so stark, where there is no middle class, the only way to ever live under the illusion that transition through class positions is possible is only through the aesthetic. It's only through this sort of spectacleized cultural production, this artistic creation, that we have some idea that there actually is a shared material interest or shared material concern. There's
fuck, dude, like talk about like TikTok, Twitter, fucking the entire virtual space today is like this space, right? Is like the place where you can hit it big, or you can just be a commoner, or like it's almost like the hijacked appeal of the space of the commons or something is like fully embodied by this like weird like virtual space, right? And like I think that in this movie that is like a physical space. And I mean, it is a film, but like whatever, like just, but like yeah, I think there's a degree to which people's interaction in that plane is at the end of the day so true to like our culture now, despite the like massive class distinctions or like this like massive void between like upper and lower classes that's like being portrayed on this middle class theater. It's so relevant. It's like a very interesting way of thinking about this movie.
Yeah, and I mean, one other sort of very material, concrete thing as well is that the development of the middle class, at least in the States, we have this idea that this sort of class position is this thing that everyone wants to be, but simultaneously no no one fits into, or it's increasingly growing smaller. You know, it wasn't that long ago that whenever you wanted to identify yourself as being upper class, you wanted to be elite, one of the chosen, the way that you depicted that to other people was through fashion. The reason why top hats and like tuxedos and like all this stuff, why those were so prominent at some point, you know, not that long ago, about 100 years ago in the robber baron and the Gilded Age, in that sort of era, it was the idea that if I'm in a city and we're walking down the street and there's these masses of people and you don't know how to identify me and who I am and what position I fit into, I'm going to communicate that to you through my distinct fashion choices, how I'm going to distinguish myself from everyone else. My top hat elevates myself above the masses. But the thing is that there's been this weird kind of like dialectical reversal of this, not over the recent like couple of decades.
Yeah, my conspicuousness about my wealth is now the convergence of me with this image of like middle class purity.
That's right. And so the way that Thorstein Veblen would say conspicuous consumption defines the upper classes, it's now this weird inconspicuous consumption.
Yeah.
Whenever I walk down the street, I'm going to wear, you know, a very low-key sweater and pants and maybe some nice shoes. And they look as if they would be the same things that you wear, but they cost $4,000.
Yeah.
And so there's this way that there's like this idea of being middle class and being unassuming and plain and also nice is this sort of weird virtual realm that we pretend that these increasingly stark material distinctions don't exist. And I think, yeah, in the film, the house becomes that. The house is the aesthetic realm in which we get to pretend that we're in these other positions and we're all really on the same playing field despite the brutal harshness of the material realities that really are what these class distinctions are all about.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Comrade Don?
Yep.
well, it's like your idea ultimately. Like,
yeah,
like
that's your idea.
At the beginning, you know, you're talking about like the non-existence
You just
of middle
incepted
class.
us.
So
That's good. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for taking it away from me. Yeah.
Your idea? All right.
That's
All right,
right.
comrade.
Like I'm just imagining the women all crying together in fucking Midsummer.
That's right.
Yeah.
Your pain is now communally processed and owned.
But yeah, so do you guys want to talk about the fucking Willy Wonka conspiracy thing? Is that
we
is that
got
what
to.
you
let's
We
do it,
got
yeah.
to.
All right, so shout out to like Rhino Stew. It's a YouTube channel that we saw this on.
We'll
So
post the link in the show
fully
notes.
stealing your ideas right now to discuss. But it's fucking interesting. It's basically a conspiracy theory, a film conspiracy theory that like
There was air quotes.
air quotes. Yeah, you can't.
Did.
God damn it! No one can see me. This is a problem. We need an aesthetic dimension, visually aesthetic dimension to it.
We can
Anyway,
always just like plug in a sound effect for air quotes.
air quotes.
What?
You know, like, I don't know. No, you put in the fucking sound effect for when you kill someone with a thrown knife in Call of Duty. We've had a couple of beers
We've
at
had a
this
couple of
point.
beers
We're
at this point. Just don't mind us.
yeah. So conspiracy theory hours, real conspiracy theory hours. Willy Wonka is unsuspecting, non-threatening story for children
Are you about to give a
chocolate,
plot synopsis of Willy Wonka,
a
the
chocolate
chocolate
mogul who's slowly a chocolate mogul who's
He's like
slowly murdering children.
He's like the Koch brother of sweets.
Yeah, that's a perfect description. And played by none other than Gene Wilder, who is close to my heart.
Yeah.
But
Big ups, Gene Wilder.
big ups, Gene Wilder, R.I.P.
Is that the 3 minutes of silence?
Yeah, for Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder,
yeah.
no, he deserves it.
He does deserve it, yeah.
Fuck. All right, 3 minutes of silence. Here we go. No,
I still have to say, I think my favorite single line in any film comes from Gene Wilder in Blazing Saddles. Where
which one? Wait.
it's where him and Bart are sitting around in the jail after they first become friends. He's the Cisco kid. He's this legendary gunfighter. And he's also just a horrible alcoholic and drinking himself to death. And at some point, Gene Wilder literally just downs like a whole fifth of vodka. And Bart looks at him and he says, "A man who drinks like that is bound to die." And Gene Wilder just looks at him and goes, "When?" I think it is the single greatest comedic line in all of film history to me. It's amazing.
All right. All I can think of is just like that scene where he's like, "You lose, you get nothing that like became like a meme, you know?
Oh
like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
you know, I'm not trying to OG you guys, you know, it's weird flex, but like I you know, I thought
flex,
that
okay.
was like something that existed in my mind as like a iconic, beautiful moment since way before the internet, you know, like I always remember
before
that
you were
scene.
born. It was there.
It's before, yeah, it existed before I was born, but when I was born and I got the chance to see it, then I fucking, you
Ultimate hipster.
I mean,
action right
it
here.
was in your mind even before.
know.
you
Oh, it
were
was
born.
in my mind before I was born.
It's in
Yeah.
the mind of God.
Holy shit. Yeah, like
I'm not making any sense. Just to let you know.
No.
But I love it that Alex is just like, you just recontextualized my entire life.
I'm gonna run
by
with it
saying that.
because the other day I was in my car and I was thinking about Don knows this story. He's gonna act like he doesn't. But so I was in my car. I was just like driving around and I was like, man, wouldn't it be crazy if the Spotify playlist and the way that it sort of predictively chooses songs was just like a manifestation of like my actual thoughts as materiality, right? Like, because my thoughts are material in some sense, right?
Alex,
Like,
are you okay?
No, I'm definitely not okay. Not on any level. No, please don't assume anything about me being okay, because I'm not. But if my thoughts exist as material, transduced energy, right, from materiality.
Sure, let's run with
then,
this. Yeah.
then I think things that come as a result of like material happenings in the world, right? And so then if Spotify was truly like the algorithm was truly tuned in to like predicting human behavior or predicting human desire, then its predictive choices about what kind of music I want to listen to, maybe based on like what it hears and all of this like data that it's collecting about my environment to like be able to better market to me, is actually an embodiment of like my material thoughts, and that there's no middle person, there's no object, right? Like there's no me, right? It's literally like a physical situation that has physical results that Spotify is just measuring and giving me a song, right? Okay, so I'm having these thoughts, right? Because I'm not okay. And then I'm like, I was thinking about no, like something about like no wonder Kurt Cobain was so depressed or something like that. And then fucking Nirvana comes on Spotify.
Because it was raining, right?
It was raining.
Bunch, yeah.
It was raining, and I was like, it would suck to live in Seattle. And I was like, man, I can't believe it. And I was like, this is why Kurt Cobain was so depressed. And then fucking Nirvana comes on the Spotify, and I was like, fuck! Like, I was like driving, just like, stop thinking, just clear your mind. You know, like, I was like,
B1, clear your mind.
but so,
Have you ever
how
heard?
did we get to this point?
I don't know, but we're here now. Have you ever heard how they were developing technology?